up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners, will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood? I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream. My four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right now in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. That one day every valley shall be exalted. Every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning, "My country tears of thee." Sweet land of liberty of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's bride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. And so let freedom ring. From the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire, let freedom reign. From the mighty mountains of New York, let freedom reign. From the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania, let freedom reign. From the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado, let freedom reign. From the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom reign from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom reign from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom reign from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring. And when this happens, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, "Free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last."
All right, free at last, and that brings us, today marks the day 5, the final, of course, of anniversary, week-long look at Dr. King's assassination anniversary, 5 decades after he took an assassin's bullet at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. All week we've been recognizing this, bringing you different dimensions of King's life with speeches. And of course, we ended today with the speech that Dr. King gave in 1963 on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. I Have a Dream. Yesterday we looked at the war in Vietnam. The day before we looked at where do we go from here, and some other speeches that Dr. King gave again, that Dr. King gave. Again, welcome to Redline here on 910 AM. I'm Bankole Thompson. I normally call today Fridays Fire Fridays, if you call it that way. Lavonia Perriman is the former chair of the Michigan Democratic Black Caucus here at the Round Table. Tony Motley is an award-winning veteran producer, television producer here with us as well. And Regina Strong from the Sierra Club Environmental Group joining us. We're going to take your calls, 313-778-7600, 313-778-7600. We're going to reflect on the week in terms of looking at King and what he was able to do. The strides that he made and where he fell short, and in terms of where the battle for equal rights goes from here. This week, we actually interviewed Congressman John Conyers as well, retired U.S. Rep. John Conyers, who introduced the King holiday legislation in Congress that became a federal holiday after President Ronald Reagan signed it into law. We spoke to him on this program, talked about his own reflections on King. So we'll get your calls, we'll take your calls, and then at 1 o'clock we're going straight to politics. The 2018 Michigan gubernatorial race, is it over or is it only starting? We will talk to Jonathan Houston, our political reporter at the Detroit News. He had a story yesterday, interesting story, about one of the candidates, Sheree Tanida. We're told polls are showing that he's leading, but is that much ado about nothing? We'll get deeper with Jonathan Houston at 1 o'clock. But for now, the roundtable, Regina Strong from Sierra Club Environmental Group, Tony Bartley, award-winning veteran producer, and Lavonia Perriman, the former chair of Michigan Democratic Black Caucus. All of them started. All right. Yes. Fire Fridays. Fire Fridays. Let me begin. Tony, I want to start with you, though. Reflecting on Dr. King all week. Just your take. 50 years after Dr. King died and where we are today.
Boy, it's a complicated and important question, Bankole. I remember being a little boy when he died and being very sad, not understanding. But as we look at where we are now, we've obviously made progress, but clearly we've got to admit there's some disappointment.
Right.
We're just not, when you think about one of your subjects that you like to discuss, poverty, I don't know how much progress we've really made. And we can look at the materialism in our community.
Right.
And I think if being poor and black in America can look different than it would look in a place we consider third world.
Right.
But with respect to the rest of the community that we live with, you're still really poor. And I don't know how Dr. King would feel about the lack of progress that's there. Because there is a lack of progress. There's no question about it. People are suffering. People don't have enough to eat, don't have adequate transportation. In our community here in Michigan, Southeast Michigan, still don't have realistic access to jobs by transportation. And so if you're poor and you live in Detroit and you need to get a bus or a train to get a job that's good luck. You'd be better off with a bicycle. What's that man that walked to work every day?
Right. Yeah.
That might be your best option. And that part is sad. That's a failure on everybody's part.
Regina, your take.
I would agree with you that a lot of what's happened may be disappointing, but I think a lot of it is we have to put it in perspective.
Right.
You know, my parents moved, I'm originally from Cleveland, and my parents moved to Cleveland from my dad's teaching job from the Jim Crow South in Birmingham, Alabama. So if we put in context the life they lived in Birmingham versus the life we can live now, and today, we have made a lot of progress. You know, one of the things, my dad passed away in 2013 at 90 years old. And I was really happy he lived to see President Obama get elected because he didn't believe it could happen. In his lifetime, he did not see that as a possibility. So when I was all excited and I'm campaigning and working to get President Obama elected, he pulled me aside and he said, honey, don't be too disappointed if it doesn't happen. And I said to him, it's going to happen, Daddy. We just have to fight. He said, I'm going to vote, but I'm just telling you. And I think if we put it in the context of his eyes and our elders' eyes, and there has been progress. I mean, right now we're in a pretty disturbing time You know, things have gone up and they've come back down, and everything we see and hear gets a little scary. But I believe that the legacy is still strong. The fact that we've spent a week talking about this means it's an important part of our today. And it gives us something. You know, I love the I Have a Dream speech because I tend to be a very optimistic person, and that's the reason for optimism, because we have a dream. And everybody's dream may be different, but as a mother, I have a dream that my children will live a better life than I do. And that's exactly what he's talking about. He's talking about his children. It is a almost prophetic dream that you want your kids to have something better. So I would say, although right now it feels like things are a little shaky, the fact that activism still lives, the fact that you have children and women and people marching in the streets right now, and that the resistance is real. I like to call myself an active part of the resistance, meaning there's so many things to resist that every day there's something new that you're like, oh my God, I got to do something about that. But that keeps his dream alive because he showed us, he gave us a blueprint on how to do direct action and how to change things. And we just have to figure out how to make that happen.
Before I come to Lavon, I want to read something. You said something, Regina, about your dad that made me reminded me of a column I wrote in 2017 on January 18th in the Detroit News. Let me read this. It's titled Obama and King. So Annie Tate McGadney, 87 years old, a child of the South who moved to Detroit in 1951, said, seeing the election of the first black president and being around to see the presidency end was a triumph of faith. He says, I quote, I'm grateful to God that at 87 years old, he allowed me to live to this day. This era will be remembered as an exception. McGadney says, because of his record in office, it is impossible to hide it all. We must tell the truth. This is an 87-year-old woman, Annie Tate McGadney. I wrote a column titled History Will Vindicate Obama. Here, talking to all the African Americans about what they thought about Obama. So I thought to bring that into context.
Absolutely.
Lavonia, your take.
Right, and absolutely. I want to piggyback on just what you both have said. And I have it in my notes. I said my dad is 94 years old. 94 years old, and I asked him to, he listens to the show, of course, and I asked him to reflect on King and what we were talking about. And he said, Bonia, I made $1.50 working at Chrysler. $1.50 an hour, $1.50 when he was growing up. They are now making around 10 to 20, depending on overtime. So that to him is progress. Number two, reflect on King, and I'm looking at what more we have to do, not what we haven't done, but what's in front of us. What's the challenge? And Martin Luther King said that I'm not the Messiah for all this dreams. It will take a number of people to move forward in terms of this movement for the change to take place in America. My dad also said that he had to come from the South. Remember, there were many African-American men and some women who had to sneak out at night.
Yeah.
Sneak out at night to end up here in the North. Some might, just so the record will show, they were saying that sometimes they think they should go back because of the upheaval that we
Many
had.
have gone back.
Yeah,
Many have
absolutely.
gone back.
Right. So I look at this, Benkley, as what we have to do in front of us, what we have to do in terms of poverty. All of the situations that African Americans and underclass people are dealing with today, there's still much work to be done.
There is a perennial underclass in Detroit. There's no question about that. This is the city that is the largest poverty city in America, according to the 2016 U.S. Census report. It is not fiction. It is a fact. We'll be right back after this break with the round to the Regina Strong, Tony Motley, and Lavonia Perryman right after they stay with us.